Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Trinity Stamps. Today we are going to be making a teacher appreciation card. It is again that time of year. So we'll be using the You Make a Difference stamp set, the Simply Sentimental Thanks and Teacher, the Skinny Stripe background stamp, that's the one that you see here, and the stencil. We're the Stars and Sprinkles stencil. So basically, we're going to talk a lot about how you can adapt certain things to your style. And then we're also going to talk about a lot of like design elements like balance and cards and things like that. This very much, like the motivation behind this, very, very much was inspired by my own life because I used to doodle in my notebooks in school nonstop. And so I wanted to kind of create that notebook paper type feel. If you don't want the stripes going through your design, you can use the coordinating die for the You Make a Difference stamp. We're going to use the heart portion of the die, but not actually cut it out. So I chose a really light blue to make my paper stripes. I wanted it to look like notebook paper. This is definitely not wide rule. It's probably even a little closer than college rule, but it gets the general feel across. So in order to create my margin, I am going to use a T-square ruler and a very, very pale red colored pencil. And then that way it'll create that notebook paper margin that I'm looking for. So this style of card is more of a collage style, which is not typically my style because I like a cleaner look. I like brighter colors. And I think a lot of times when people think collage, they think muted colors, distressed, many layers, ribbon, things like that. But a true collage does not have to be that way. So here I'm starting with the first stencil. I tried to use my Blending Buddy, what was just left on it, to see if that was going to be dark enough because I knew I wanted it to be a really light kind of addition in the background. It wasn't dark enough, so I did have to get my inks out, but I was very light-handed with them. And then I'm just going to go through each of the colors, yellow, blue, red, and green, and all of them I kept to the outside because I knew that I was going to be stamping my focal point more in the center. So this is just another thing that we can add to make the background more interesting. It gives it more of like a festive kind of feel. And then, if you used it the way that it was intended, you would be able to create a Stars and Sprinkles background across the entire background. But we want that section to be reserved for our focal point. So with a collage style, like I said, we talk, we think a lot about those other styles where it's, a lot of layers and stuff. We are going to have layers. If you grew up, if you were like a 90s kid, like I was, scrapbooking started to be kind of a huge thing. Photo collages. I mean, I had photo collages, just everywhere. I had, all different kinds. Back in the day, we used to like cut up magazines and make little collages. So it's something that's super kind of nostalgic for me. And with the note writing, why was I even writing notes? I was writing notes so that I could make art because that's what I was doing. So here we have the background done. I'm going to go ahead and use a alcohol ink safe black ink to stamp this You Make a Difference stamp. Love this one. I recently did a video featuring all of the ones that came out recently from Love Danny, that collection. And I will link that at the end so that you can see it if you missed it. But basically, we're just going to go in here and we're going to start coloring this as if we had hand drawn it. Now, I do want to point out and apologize. I have my camera on auto focus, but ever since my son kind of messed around with it, it hasn't been exactly right. So there's like one or two spots where it starts focusing on my hand and it goes out of focus in the background. I apologize. I am working on trying to fix it. Just bear with me. So the banner looks super gray right now, but it's not going to stay that way. We just needed to add the shadows. And then for the most part, I stuck to pretty much the primary colors. The only tertiary color I used was green, or secondary color I used was green. And that was just because I needed another color, and it's more kind of sporadic throughout the card. The primary colors are the primary colors in the card. So I'm just going to go through and color this. When I was in school, I would draw like the names of whoever I was writing my notes to. Usually it was like my high school boyfriend. So I would like draw his name at the top, and I would have all these different ways that I would color it or add shadows or, do different kind of gradients or things like that, because I had all of the, different highlighter colors, different gel pens. I think that's really like when I discovered Sakura Jelly Roll pens, and they came in all different colors, and your girl was hooked. Like, I just did it on, plus you could write on your hand with them, and they rolled so smooth. Like, people used to like sit in class with me and be like, oh, will you draw my boyfriend's name on my hand? And then they would just walk around with that all day, my little drawing on their hand, which is so funny to think, because I wasn't, I didn't draw, like, sketch traditionally, like how I'm illustrating now. I didn't do that back then. I just liked to color. And that obviously has followed me into adulthood, because here we are still coloring very happily, mind you. So for most of these, I did do kind of a darker gradient from the bottom to the top. That's just, I guess, how I prefer to see them, but you could really do them any way that you wanted. Just whatever, kind of colors work for you. I really just want to talk about more along the lines of trying to set up your elements. So usually, I wouldn't color in the margins of my paper. So you can see when I stamped this, it's a little bit diagonal. That just adds a little bit of interest, but it's definitely not straight in the middle of the card. Because if I was drawing this on a piece of notebook paper, I wouldn't have drawn in the margins, because typically, you have holes there. And so you wouldn't want to draw over the holes that would be in the margins. So knowing that, I know that in order to create balance in my card, I am going to have to add some other things. So if you don't want to have to add the other things, but you're like, I really like how bright and fun this is for a teacher appreciation card, then just stamp yours in the center. And then you won't have to worry about the other things. But because I chose not to, I need to make sure that I'm creating some balance. So as I go through and color these, I'm already thinking about what I have in my, craft supply that I could use for a teacher card that will help me to create a little bit of balance. That is where I pulled the teacher, Simply Sentimental, and the thanks, because I can add those elements, again, create that collage feel with lots of layering, but not necessarily bulk. I mean, for the most part, this is a pretty flat card. I used like a handful of dies, but mostly everything's just stamped kind of over top of itself. So I know that I need to fill kind of the left-hand side and that bottom left-hand corner. That bottom left-hand corner is really, really open. And so I'm going to need to add some more elements down there to create some balance. So right away, I start to look at what do I have, what colors am I already using that I can use again that will give me, that balance, but not make it too busy or too muddy. Because, I mean, when you think about it, like jokingly name the video like Everything But the Kitchen Sink, but also, we're doing a lot of techniques in here. We've done ink blending, stenciling, we've done stamping, we've done coloring, we've added we're going to add a cast shadow, we're doing die cuts, we're coloring die cuts. Like, there's a lot going on, but at the end of it, our card still doesn't look super busy. So I'm just looking, I'm trying to create those visual triangles that we talk about in card design. So I have the red difference in the middle and then two red hearts that kind of create a triangle. Same thing with the blue, the U, the day, and the little blue heart are going to create a triangle. For the yellow, we're going to add in some other elements that will help create the triangle. Same thing for the green. So now that my coloring of all the items is done, I really want to add some weight and highlight the word difference. I want that to be an eye-catching portion because it is a teacher appreciation card. So one of the ways that you can do that and add more weight to, maybe a thinner script is to outline it. So I chose to use blue because the other two large elements that I have are also blue. So this is going to create a nice balance in between all like the other two elements. And so this also, I'm just being real with y'all because you guys know I don't start over for anything. If you have any areas where you kind of got out of the line, using an outline like this will help mask that. So I picked one of the lighter colors. I went in and went around it with a B02, and then I went in around the edges and did a B00. This is just going to help it kind of disperse into the background. I also added a diagonal stripe, a tone-on-tone pattern in the U, because it's going to add interest in those very large kind of bulky letters, but it's not going to create busyness because the pattern is tone on tone. In order to help this kind of pop off the page and stay true to my high school days where I was doodling in notebooks, I am going to add a cast shadow. I don't think that I ever wrote a note or drew a name or anything like that without adding a cast shadow, just because I thought that they were so cool. So all adding a cast shadow is you want to stay with the same direction. I like to do my light source in the top right-hand corner, which means all of my shadows are down and to the left. And you just want to keep whichever direction you choose. You just want to keep that same direction throughout the entire thing. And this is going to help lift it off the page and give it a more 3D appearance versus just being kind of a flat 2D style this hand lettering is what it looks like, which I assume, that illustrator probably did hand letter it. So this is a nice way to just give yourself some dimension without really a lot of work. Yes, it does take a minute to think about it if you're not used to doing cast shadows, but if you practice these consistently, it really does become like second nature, and it's super fast to add it and get that dimension really quickly. So once we're done doing that, I'm not going to blend it out. I'm just going to leave it with that C5, that mid-tone gray. But we are then going to move on to some other things that we can add to create that collage style, but also balance. So remember, we have to fill in the left-hand side and the bottom left-hand corner. So I'm going to use this large thank you from the Simply Sentimental Thanks, but I don't want it to compete with the focal point. So I'm going to stamp it in a neutral. I chose to go with a gray, but other colors I considered were a yellow, a green, or a pale red, because you want it to fade into the background. Fill that space, but fade into the background. You don't want it to compete with that focal point. So I stamped my lighter gray twice. It does get lighter as it dries. I know that I need to fill up the bottom left-hand corner, but to balance that, I need to add a little bit more to the top right. So in these, there's a lot of different styles of fonts, which is a really great way to incorporate things into a collage style. So I stamped the I Appreciate You, which is more of a like typeface, like old school typewriter font. And then the Thank You is nice and bold, where it has the bold outline in white letters. Because I used the black in the top right-hand corner, I then want to repeat the black in the bottom left-hand corner. So you can look at a couple of different options. I knew I wanted something that was going to be a bit bolder because a lot of the script in our focal point is more of a fine line. So I wanted a teacher that was going to be a bit bolder, a bit more eye-catching, kind of take more space. And so I went with this one. I treated it with my anti-static tool, and then I'm going to stamp it twice in a white pigment ink and then heat emboss it with a white detail embossing powder. From there, then once that's all heated and smooth, like I know that this is going to carry a lot of weight in that bottom right hand corner to help me evenly distribute my design. So I'm going to use the die cut, the shadow die cut for this. There is also a word die cut for the word teacher. I just chose to do the heat embossing. And then in addition, I am going to use this little clipboard set. It's got this adorable little paper clip in it, which is a wonderful little pop of color. And then it also has some pens and pencils. I chose to use the pencil because I knew that I needed to bring in another yellow element. So here is that teacher kind of filling up the bottom left-hand corner. And then my little paper clip will go in the top right-hand corner. And my pencil will fill up kind of at a diagonal that little bit of right-hand corner. In addition, I cut them, and then also my son cut them because he was sitting in here, bored. But I cut a couple of these little extra hearts from the You Make a Difference die set so that I would be able to fill up that area. So here I've colored it green. I didn't do any shading on it. I just picked a mid-tone green that I had already been using and colored that. For the pencil, I am going to color it just like a pencil. But I'm not adding really any extra shading outside of the body of it because that's the bulk of what we'll see. But everything else is pretty much just one color. So the eraser, the, what do they call that? The little metal piece. Is it something with an F? For paintbrushes, I can't remember. But anyway, the tip of the pencil, I did a really light brown. The lead was just that C5 gray. But the body of it, I used all of the same yellow colors that I used in the other ones. So it wouldn't look like it was like left undone or it was only half done. You know what I'm saying? So then I'm going to tuck that pencil in there. And here, this one was another stamp that's from the teacher set. It says you're an A+. And I thought maybe I was going to put that in there, but it turned out I didn't need it. But I still think it's a cute little sentiment. You could swap it out for the I appreciate you at the top. And then I did color up these little hearts. They are the same size and shape as the ones that are drawn, in the hand lettered portion. So they work really nicely. I started to do a large blue heart, and then I realized that I probably should make that red. So I decided to make a smaller blue heart, and then I also did two other smaller hearts because once I put everything together, the left hand side looked a little bit lackluster. It looked like it needed a little bit more. So I added a green and a yellow heart. So I'm going to put that little paper clip on the top there. I didn't really worry so much about it kind of impeding what was there because you can look at it and figure out what it says. Also, with a collage style, you typically do have layers and not everything is going to be, totally completely legible or totally completely seen. So that's just kind of one of the things that I just have to accept. Now, I do love bright colors. I love bright colors with a bold black. So all of these things are still very true to my style, even though collage is not necessarily a design trend that I typically do. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it or that you can't make it your own. So if you see, a trend or something that you really love and you try it and it's not looking, it doesn't look like everybody else's and you're not really happy with it. Like that's the problem that I ran into, when collage distress was really big. I was like, I just don't like how I'm using this. Just try it, but incorporate the elements that you still love. So I added some glitter because I love glitter. And now I'm going in and adding some white highlights to the hearts, to the word day. And then that was pretty much all that I did. That was the whole thing. So everything is adhered flat. It would mail really nicely if you needed it to. I hope this inspires you guys to look at collage cards in a different way. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.